Welcome to Temple University Young Alumni Moving Forward series, Demystifying Networking. My name is Rachel Brown, and I'm the director of the Career Center at Temple University. The Career Center is in 220 Mitten Hall, and we serve all Temple students and all Temple alumni. I'm delighted to be here and be joined by one of my colleagues and friends.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm John DiCarlo. I am the Student Media Program Director at Temple, which means I'm the advisor to Temple's newspaper, the Temple News, the Yearbook, Templar, and WHIP, our student internet radio station. So I'm very happy to be part of this conversation.
Okay, so let's take a look at what the workshop goals are. At the end of this workshop, which takes about 15 minutes, we hope that you will understand the value of networking, enhance your networking skills and confidence, and identify the next steps and generate a game plan for your game plan with a timeline for your networking. I'm going to kick it off in sort of an unusual way by asking John what he thinks is 80%.
As a frustrated Philadelphia sports fan, the number that comes to mind is probably the frequency with which the Flyers are allowing goals in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but that may not be what you're getting at right now.
Very good, John. Thank you. It is unfortunately true for the Flyers, not true in this case. 80% is the percentage of unadvertised positions. And I wonder, John, if you could give us an example from your own personal experience that exemplifies this.
Sure. Actually, I'm actually a Temple alum and graduated from Temple in 1998. Shortly before I graduated, I started working for a newspaper down in Vineland, New Jersey. It's about 45 minutes away from here, called the Daily Journal. And I had been working with a friend of mine named Paul Zeiss, who's now at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Paul's first full-time job was at the Daily Journal, and he kept telling me, hey, if I ever move on, maybe you could be the guy that fills my position. Sure enough, with timing being everything, about a couple of weeks after I graduated, Paul was set to move on to the Post-Gazette, and I moved into his job, and it was an unadvertised position. I think my sports editor was of the mindset of saying, hey, if John's ready, we can groom him for this position. So it was right place and right time, but that was a job that was never previously posted, and that was how I really got my full-time career in journalism kickstarted.
Thanks so much, John. And to further get a little bit of a feeling about what networking might entail, we thought it might be helpful to take a look at the definition of networking from dictionary.com. And what I'd like to point out about this slide is the emphasis on mutual assistance, that this is a two-way street. This is not just about me asking someone else for help. And that's sometimes feedback that we get from alumni, and just saying, I don't want to get started. I feel like I'm always asking for something. Keep in mind that you have something to offer also. Another thing I want to point out about this slide is the common interest, how important that is. So between common interest, mutual assistance, wondered if our friend John could give us an example from his experience to make that point.
Sure. Again, another Temple example and an example from my previous newspaper, Ben Watanabe, one of our former sports editors at the Temple News. When it came time for him to graduate, I connected him to a job at the Daily Journal. He was actually doing my old job in the sports department and filled one of the positions I had there. Ben eventually went on to get his master's degree at Columbia, and now he's at the Easton Express-Times up in Northeast Pennsylvania. Recently, Ben told me of a couple of open positions at the Express-Times, and with him being a Temple graduate, he reached back out to me, and he wants to connect some Temple people to the sports department there and one over to the news department, and we hopefully have sent him a couple of qualified candidates for interviews there. So there's an example of Ben and I helping out each other in the networking process through a common interest and a friendship that we have.
Thank you so much, John. How do you get started? Where do you start with building a network? Well, as cheesy as it might sound, you start with yourself. And you need to do a little bit of soul searching, at minimum a little bit of reflection on who you are and what you're looking for, and practice being able to state that. And you need the reason why this is important is that you never know when you're going to meet somebody, and when you are wanting to take advantage of every conversation, of every relationship, it really is helpful for you to be able to introduce yourself, state where you're coming from, what you're looking for, and it gives that person some information that they can go with, that they can use, because essentially people want to help each other. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we're here. And to make that point, we have some components of the 30-second spot. You may have also heard of this referred to as an elevator speech. These are the components, and John's going to give us an example of it.
All right, let's say I'm at our spring college media convention in New York, so I'm up there with some other colleagues of mine that advise newspapers, radio stations, yearbooks, TV stations around the country. And I identified a colleague, someone whose work that I really admired. Here's what my 30-second spot would be. Hi, I'm John DiCarlo. I'm the Student Media Program Director at Temple. Listen, I just wanted to take a minute to tell you I'm a really big fan of the work that you guys are doing. We have a lot of similar interests in what we're doing here, and I was just hoping that at some point maybe we could catch up and talk sometime. I'd really like to hear about your career path, how you got into the business. I think I could learn a lot from you. There's so much knowledge, I think, that I can impart upon my students at Temple, so I'd love to catch up with you sometime just to hear about what you guys are doing. And that's, again, just a very simple 20 to 30-second way of how you can start a conversation with somebody. You're not going on for 5 minutes. And we know you can do this, too. So we're going to pause here right now so you can practice your 30-second spot. As Rachel said, I know it sounds a little cheesy, but trust me, this works. And here's a chance. We're going to pause this right now and have you perfect and craft your 30-second spot.
Okay, so welcome back. Congratulations on completing your 30-second spot. That was one of the things that we heard from alums at the workshop that we presented a couple of months ago in February, is they knew they needed to have a 30-second spot. They had never really taken the time to do it, and they knew that it was going to be effective and help them taking the first steps. So you have your 30-second spot. You have an understanding of the value of networking. How do you build your network? So we have a couple of bullet points on this slide to answer that question. And as we had mentioned previously in the definition of networking, finding the common interest. So you don't have to think too hard, or go too far to find someone who has something in common with you when there's thousands and thousands and thousands of Temple alumni. So take advantage of events that are sponsored by the Career Center and the Alumni Center. On myalspace.com, there are alumni events that are happening all the time. And I wanted to also highlight on myalspace.com, there's also a mentor directory. It's called My Alspace Mentor, and it's available alums who are willing to be informational sources for other alums. So make sure you check that out. In addition to having common interest with alumni at Temple, think about professional associations or community organizations where you might find people that are of like mind as well. Whether it is an event that you're attending or a conversation that you're about to start, approach it with intention. What do you want to get out of it? And remember how you want to introduce yourself. So much happens, so much it matters a lot how you introduce yourself in that first impression. John's example of his 30-second spot was a perfect example of informational interviews, just wanting to talk to somebody about their career path, their experience. People love to talk about themselves, and so it's a great opportunity for someone to share their knowledge and experience with you and for you to be able to learn from that. Think very broadly about who you might be able to do informational interviews with: friends, friends of friends, family's friends, faculty, contacts at work and community organizations, etc. On social networking, it can be an extremely effective way for you to build your network. It needs to be used appropriately, as noted on the slide, and for the sake of time, we won't go into too much detail. We won't go into any detail, actually, about that, but there are many, many resources on the Career Center webpage, the address is at the bottom of the slide, that give you more information about that. So with all of that said, I wonder, John, if you could tell us what might jump out to you from this slide.
I think what jumps out to me is the piece about approaching each event intentionally and thinking about what you want to learn. To me, there's no such thing as a wasted conversation or a wasted experience when it comes to networking. And as Rachel touched on earlier, be positive about this process. If you are of a positive mindset and you do believe, which I do, and I'm sure Rachel does too, that people are naturally going to be inclined to want to help you out, that could give you the confidence to approach them. Sometimes you could be in a particular setting and there's someone that you really admire. They've been in the business for a long time and you may be intimidated to approach them or you're not sure. just be positive about it. And that's going to give you the confidence to ultimately approach them and have that conversation with them.
Thank you so much, John. I could not agree more. And in fact, being positive is the first thing on our next slide of the continuing suggestions to build your network. Be professional, be yourself, be positive. This is a little bit of a repeat, but I can't emphasize enough the importance of being able to clearly state your intentions, what you bring to the conversation and what you want to learn. It goes directly back to your 30-second spot and the concept that this conversation is mutually beneficial. If you're at an event such as a networking event or a professional association meeting and you're in a room full of people, be very aware of your body language, yours and theirs. And some of the feedback that we've gotten from other alums is that they sometimes don't know how to disengage in a conversation. Somebody may be almost feeling like they're cornered into the back corner of a room. And one of the alums that attended the workshop gave this suggestion of a nice way to end the conversation politely and professionally is to give the person your business card. Say you enjoyed the conversation. Say you'd like to stay in touch and you wish them well, and move on. And I think that I have done that personally, and it works very well. Always, always say thank you. And the final thing, the last two notes on here, is trying to stress the importance of staying organized with your network. One suggestion is to write notes on the back of the business cards that you receive, where you met them, what you talked about, little tidbits that you want to remember, what your next step might be. I myself utilize an Excel spreadsheet that just manages my network for me, and that includes name, where I met them, contact information, next steps, and I try and revisit that every couple of months or so to keep my network fresh. So moving on, this is really where the rubber meets the road for this workshop, and this is the part about your networking checklist where you will create your game plan. And to kick it off, I'll turn it back over to John.
Well, the first thing you want to start with is creating your spectacular spot. Practice with a friend or colleague. Practice in the car if you have to. But the great thing about this is we know you've already done this already because we paused this earlier. So you have number one taken care of already.
Freshen up your resume. The Career Center can help with that. We can review and give you feedback on your resume through our virtual walk-in hours, which are Monday through Friday from 2 to 3. You go to it from our website. You can also schedule a coaching appointment to have your resume critiqued. And one other thought, and particularly as more and more folks are being conscious of going green, rather than always carrying your resume with you, we're seeing alumni more and more just carrying business cards, and it can have your contact information on it as well as the highlights of your 30-second spot, so somebody can see at a quick glance and remember who you are, and it can really be an effective tool and go a long way.
Next, you want to develop and actually commit to your personal networking strategy, and staying committed to it is the key. Attending at least one networking event in the next 30 days. Identifying 5 people for informational interviews, and actually constructing a timeline to get those interviews done. Keep in touch with the people that you meet, and remember the things that you talked about, whether it was a common interest, a funny joke, anything that's going to connect the two of you. And build credibility in your daily interaction with other people. And finally, again, believe in yourself and believe that you can do this, because that's half of the approach in this situation.
Believe in yourself, you can do this, and the Career Center is certainly here to help. I mentioned in the last slide about our career coaching. The 30-minute appointments can be done in person in Mitten Hall, or if you live out of town, they can be done over the telephone. You schedule an appointment simply by calling the phone number at the bottom of the screen. We have hundreds of workshops, professional development workshops, and career events. They happen throughout the academic year, throughout the calendar year, actually. 2 career fairs a year. We have a part-time job fair. We have networking events. There's a lot of industry-specific events that we have. Everything's advertised, promoted, outlined, highlighted on the Career Center website, and all of our events are open to Temple alumni. If you can't get to see us in person, again, if you live out of the area, we have a lot of resources on our website. And specifically, we have a virtual career center that has a lot of information. There's Going Global, a resource for individuals who might be interested in starting a career overseas. We have Focus, a self-assessment program on our virtual career center. We have a lot of industry resources and job search links to websites that have been checked out and recommended by our career coaches for career information. So whether you can meet us in person or whether you can meet us virtually, the Career Center is here to help you, and we're here to help you throughout your career. So thank you so much for making a commitment to join us today. On behalf of the Career Center, I hope that I see you in an upcoming event or that we connect with you through our virtual Career Center or perhaps on another webinar in the future. But thanks for joining us, and I'll turn it over to John to take us out.
Well, I just wanted to say, too, just on the, just coming off of Alumni Weekend last month in April, it was great to hear some people talking about the Career Center and using it as a resource, and I really can't emphasize that enough. I mean, there are some really terrific resources over there that Rachel has talked about. Whether you're local, whether you're not local, you can take advantage of the Virtual Career Center. And it really is a tremendous resource, and it was a great thing to hear people talking about it. So I think that's proof positive that recent graduates, older graduates are really using the Career Center, and they're very wise to do that. Also, if you're interested in networking with me or through me, you can find me on myalspace.com. If you're interested in the field of student affairs, student media advising. I'm an adjunct professor here as well. I also stay in the field of sports writing as the editor of a website called alscoop.com. I have interns there, so I'd be glad to talk to you about any one of those topics, and look forward to hopefully speaking with you soon. And thanks again to Rachel for having me as part of this process. I really enjoyed it.